Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are going to talk about my go-to watercolor supplies. So the first one is Shinhan PWC, so you might have seen this all over my videos. It's a Korean artist grade paint. And it comes in tubes just like this, but I just pour them into half pans just so that it's more convenient to use. But if you don't want to put it in half pans, you can just squeeze out the tube paints on a mixing palette before you start painting. Now let me show you some of my recent favorite colors. This is called Verditer Blue. I love this color. It has a dusty bluish violet color. Next, I've been adding lavender to my paintings and also lilac recently. Next, I also use Jaune Brilliant. So this is like a pastel yellow color, but you can definitely mix this color by just adding white to your paints. And then of course we have Payne's Gray. I love this deep color. Next, this is My Merry Blue. It's a different brand, and I'm using Potter's Pink from this brand because it's not available on Shinhan PWC. Next, I always get asked about this mixing palette. It's actually just the lid of my Qor Watercolor set. You can see that brand over there. And this is the container of their tube paints. Let me cover it up so you can see what it looks like. You'll notice it's very compact and the size is maybe about 4 by 6 or 5 by 7 inches. And I love the little wells for mixing my colors. Next, let's talk about brushes. This is a silver brush black velvet. So these are my favorite round brushes in sizes 6 and 8. So they are a mix of synthetic and squirrel hair, which is why this brush is also very soft, but at the same time it has a little bit of bounce. Now what I love about this is that when you dip this brush in the water and then you tap the excess water, you can see that it's still very pointy. It can hold a lot of water and still keep its point, which is very important when you're painting florals. I love the versatility of this brush because I don't have to use two brushes. Now I can use this for broad strokes and also for hairline strokes. Now let's do a simple demo. So we can try to paint thin lines using this brush. Just lightly touch the tip of the brush onto the paper, and then you can also add more pressure to your stroke to create broad strokes. The brush is soft enough to follow your stroke, so you can see right here I'm going to paint a leaf, and I can try to press my brush and you can see the bristles fan out, and then I'm just going to lift my brush towards the end of the stroke, and you can see that it comes back to its original shape and you get that nice pointy tip. So as you paint, it doesn't have a lot of resistance, which is why I recommend this for painting loose florals. If you can only get one brush, I would suggest getting the size 8 brush. That's more flexible when it comes to painting different subjects. So next, I love using gouache. I'm using white gouache from the brand Holbein, and this is permanent white. So I noticed that for most gouache tubes, they become a little bit dry as time goes by. So I guess if you're not going to use a lot of gouache, try to buy the smaller tubes. So I love using this for highlights and just adding those nice white details on the florals. Next, I just recently discovered this about a year or two ago. This is Baohong watercolor paper. You can see that this one on top is called the Baohong Academy. It is a student grade paper, but this one on the other hand is the artist grade version. Both of them are 100% cotton paper and cold press. The thickness is 300 GSM. You can purchase them in blocks like this. So a watercolor block is glued on all sides except for one area. This is the texture of the student grade line or academy, and you can see that there are more visible outlines. Now let's check out the artist grade version. So it looks just slightly softer, and the colors, I feel like the colors are blending in better on the artist grade version. And you also notice that there's more texture on the artist grade version. The student grade paper has a smoother texture, which also makes it easier to paint on because your brush glides on more smoothly. But they are actually both of very good quality. So for me, a downside for the artist grade line is the inconsistency. Recently, I ordered a couple of blocks, and the color of the paper looks creamier or just a little bit darker and not as white as the previous blocks. The supplier told me that maybe it was the cotton that they use. I don't know, maybe it's not as white. But other than that, to be honest, for the price, this is a really, really good buy. Again, both of them are good. If you're on a budget, use the Baohong Academy. It's one of the best student grade papers. Just take note that you might get more hard edges, as you can see on this peony. But don't worry, with a little bit of adjustment with the water that you put onto the paper, you'll be able to avoid that. Anyway, I could go on and on talking about papers because I love observing. Now let's check out the artist grade one again. For some reason, the paintings on the artist grade paper has more depth for me. And again, you get a better blending of colors, and the paint stays wet a little bit longer compared to the Academy, but maybe it doesn't really matter for some people if they don't paint wet on wet. I would say though that Arch's paper is still better than Baohong, but because of the price, I am using Baohong and also the availability in my country. Alright, next let's talk about sketchbooks. So this is my favorite sketchbook. It's from the brand Etchr Lab, and this size is A6. It's a little bit small, but I find myself enjoying painting on this size because it's very handy. And here I'm showing you some of the pages. You also see the texture of the paper. This is cold press paper. I would say that this doesn't have a lot of texture compared to other 100% cotton papers. I guess it's a slightly more similar to the Baohong Academy texture. But so far, I'm able to paint some florals that look good, just like this. I've tried a few wet on wet techniques and they also look good. But I'm very happy that we have more options of sketchbooks with 100% cotton paper nowadays compared to before when I was starting out. Another plus point is that you can actually paint on the cover of this sketchbook because it's canvas. I just decided to keep it white for now, but I do have plans to paint on it later on. The perfect size for me would be A5, which I haven't shown in this video, but A5 seems like a good size for painting florals as well. Now let's talk about Caddy paper. So you've probably seen this in my feed as well. This is a sketchbook from India. From what I remember, it's made of cotton rag. So when it comes to texture, this definitely has more texture compared to like my other papers. You can see it right here. If your brush is quite soft, it might be a little difficult to paint on this paper. I honestly love the vintage feel of this paper, and it goes really well with art philosophy paints. I find that with some brands of paints, when it dries up, it becomes lighter than usual, but with art philosophy, the colors still look vibrant on this paper. I love how affordable this sketchbook is, and you can still create a lot of nice loose florals. And I also love the deckled edges right here. It looks very, very beautiful. The downside is that this paper has its limitations. You can do a lot of layering because sometimes the paper kind of peels off. but maybe for 1 to 2 layers of paint it's okay. I tried painting landscapes on this paper, but it did not work out well for me. So this paper also warps or becomes wrinkly after you paint it with a lot of water. Personally, I don't really mind since it's just a sketchbook. Just put a lot of heavy books on this journal to keep the papers flat again. So here's a page where my son painted on it, and here are some other floral pages. So I hope that this gave you an idea of what you can paint on this paper. So another go-to for me, what I said, art philosophy goes well with Caddy paper. This is my favorite set, the Odyssey set. It has a lot of bold florals, or bold colors rather. And the colors are also unique, but I feel like you need a basic set to complement this Odyssey set. And what I also love about this set is that it has white, which I actually hated before. I realized that if you have white paint, you can add it to the other colors and create a pastel shade. Next, I also recommend getting the Currents set. I love this set because it's a compilation of blues and greens. I certainly use this for my florals. It's very handy because you don't need to mix your greens anymore. It's already there. Let's now go to the last art material. This is the Posca Acrylic Pen. I love using this for adding some white details on the florals. It gives it more depth. So this is one of the sizes. It's quite difficult to find it here in the Philippines, but I think you can find this on Amazon. I'm just going to put the link in the description. So you have some thin and thick tips. That's it. I hope that you enjoyed this compilation of my go-to watercolor supplies. And if you have any more questions, just comment down below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel for more art videos. Bye!